And we're live.
Yeah, we are.
Peter's in a mood.
Why would you say that?
Because you didn't go hello. You didn't do the la. You didn't do your, well, I mean, well, hello, la, la, la. You were just sitting there, so.
What's a lechy character?
Something that is like when you're in character and said character is misogynistic or lechy or handsy or rapey, and said character makes comments that people don't like. So we're going to not do that. That's all I'm saying.
Okay.
And you can either say, okay, and just be gracious about it or not. But that's all I'm saying. So for example, Bernie is fab. Trump, fine. Biden as sleepy, but not handsy. That's also okay. But I think we're going to have to like bench Bill for the campaign. Okay. That's what I think.
Anything positive you want to talk about?
Let's think about that. What have we been up to? I feel like I've been everywhere. I know. I feel like I've been all over the place.
Well, we did a lot this weekend.
Yeah, we did.
Apparently the Congresswoman also has been trying to do a lot, but I think we're on opposite ends of the spectrum. So I guess we should probably get into it.
We had a good protest. What did you want to start with?
Well, I guess before Dr. Shiva comes on, we can just talk about what actually did go down with Debbie the other day. You see, she really can't stop going on TV and continuing to project herself in a way that suggests that she's on the right side of issues, especially ones related to what's going on in the Middle East. Well, you're going to see firsthand what that's all about. And of course, now that she knows that she's being challenged by Jen, I mean, she's known all along, but this is a habit that she had back in 20, which is she went on corporate media constantly, and she's doing it again.
Yeah.
So she wants to be in the public eye, but as you've suggested,
she's a gift in that way.
Keep going. So
I say, fly, Icarus, fly.
Though, I mean, the idea that they can just pick up in tents and move from one side of the region to another, and that there's no serious risk, as the prime minister suggested there, not to mention the lack of food and shelter that they have. Is it a bit more complicated than that? I mean, this could be a serious humanitarian crisis if the Rafah invasion happens.
Respectfully as well. No, it is not as simple as you are describing, or as in that clip you showed, as Prime Minister Netanyahu described to us. It is going to take some time. The process of moving, in fact, Israel is even jeopardizing its own ability to eradicate and destroy the threat that Hamas represents.
You cannot eradicate something that was created out of what you started. In fact, what's going to happen is this is going to get worse
It
and
is.
worse and worse. There are multiple generations now that have lost not one family member, not two. There have been people that have lost dozens.
But you see what they've done is they've framed this, they have framed this as if it's Hamas is a small terrorist organization wherein you could get all of them. Right? Like they've created this narrative like it's this small group of terrorists and we just have to kill all of them. But that's not what it is. And they really bank on the fact that most people are just very ignorant about it and don't know. So the reality is Hamas is an ideology. It is a political party, I guess, for lack of a better term, but it's a concept, it's an ideology. And the leadership of said group of ideology are in Qatar. So even if you believe that it was just this finite group of people, wouldn't you think that you would be going after the people at the top of that? I mean, it's just that, but so that's why that is a complete bogus argument. They know it's a bogus argument. She knows it's a bogus argument, but they're going to keep selling it to you like this one group of bad guys if we could just go get them, because that suits their narrative.
And that suits AIPAC very well.
Very well.
By being responsible and understanding that they want to make sure that they can minimize civilian casualties all as much as they can, all while Hamas prevents them from doing that because they don't care about their own people.
Oh, that's such a projection. That is such a you know what? I love that she ends with that. They don't care about their own people. No, you know who doesn't care about their own people? The people that are claiming to care about hostages while dropping indiscriminate bombs in a location where they don't know where their hostages are. That's not people who care about their hostages, not people who shoot their own hostages. So yeah, those are the people who don't care about their own, the people that take groups of people into areas they ought not be as human shields. Those are the people that do not care about their own. The people that are resorting to eating grass and animal food to try to survive and keep their kids from being bombed. Yeah, they care a lot more about their people.
So over the weekend, our Congresswoman has been attempting to make the round. We all know why. But this is, I think, very important for people to understand. This is something that I think she's going to probably end up experiencing quite often if she thinks that now all of a sudden, because she has what she's going up against, her attempt to try to make inroads in these communities. But I think that what you'll see from this video is the indication that that's probably not going to happen.
The way that it's taught in medical schools, right, and in the training of doctors. And so we have to decolonize the system, and we have to kind of hit the reset button and go back to the wisdom of communities. And as a midwife, I can say that we've gained a lot of wisdom over the years when it comes to pregnancy and birth and the human body. But in the last 100 years, most of that has been sidelined by a system that is run by doctors. And when you look around the world at countries that have great maternal health outcomes, midwives lead that maternity care. Doctors are part of the system, absolutely, for when they are needed, but midwives lead that care. And that's an important difference when you look at every other industrialized nation around the world that has great maternal and child health outcomes. Midwives lead. I will also say that when we talk about not trusting the healthcare system or distrust or mistrust, however we want to label it, I think we have to stop putting the onus on the community and saying, oh, we need to figure out how to help Black people trust their doctors. We need to figure out how to help doctors be trustworthy. And we need to reframe that question and flip it on its head, right? And we got here, to answer your question about how did we get here, we got here because we don't have a system that is based on human rights.
We don't have a system that's based on human rights. And this lady's name, Jamara Amani, she is a midwife and has, she's more than just a midwife. She has a center and she teaches, and she's just an amazing community person here. And I've met her a few times, and I just find, this is a meeting about Black women's health that is in an area, in a Black and vulnerable area in our district.
And so this is someone who our congresswoman invited to come and be a speaker because she's, so it's just kind of ironic that this is someone who doesn't support single payer healthcare. But I digress.
We don't have a system that fights for justice for all. We have a profit-based medical industrial complex, right? We don't have universal health care. We're not taking care of people in terms of the needs of the community. And we talk about the social determinants of health, but we also have this web of causation, right? Which is based on things like redlining and Jim Crow and the legacies of that in our communities. And then we continue it today by creating these same problems around the world, by not being in solidarity with Haiti, with not being in solidarity with Palestine. And
okay, now I want people to take note of this because it's very interesting. My congresswoman has never said the word Palestine, and she has never said the word Palestinian. She answers questions she has never said those words. They do not come out of her mouth. So I just think it's just very interesting that she's just sitting there and nodding.
I love the fact that Jamara gave her a twofer. First one being that our community needs universal health care.
Yeah.
And Debbie has voted against universal health care every single term that she's been in Congress. In addition to that, the fact that Jamara slipped in supporting the people of Palestine. Now, Debbie's hiding it pretty well, but I'm sure underneath it all, she's thinking, well, that's the last time I'll ever talk to this person.
Well, not only that, but what ended up happening, and I don't know what the plan was in the first place, but my friend who filmed this, who was there, my friend Mo, was there to actually ask her congresswoman why she would be having a forum on Black women's health when she doesn't support them having health care. That was going to be her question, which is very valid as a constituent. And yet, when this ended, they hurried and got out of there and didn't take any questions. So I think that this didn't go how maybe they thought it would go. But yeah, so there were no questions were asked.
We'll finish it.
Those chickens come home to roost, right? And so we have to reframe the entire question and the entire system and really deal with the issue of justice, which is why we are building the movement for Earth Justice, because we want to bring more of a justice lens and more of a human rights lens into healthcare so that we can transform even the way medical students are trained and the way they interact in the system. The entire system itself needs to change as well.
Yeah, I don't think that went as she thought it would.
And I think when you look at, a lot of what we've talked about since we've started this podcast, which is transforming politics into service, what Jamara just did was transforming politics into service. She served her community by basically putting the person that has been voting against their interests for over 2 decades in a very tough spot.
Well, and again, she was invited there. I do not know, because our congresswoman has not been really posting things. She just shows up, like they do them very last minute so that a lot of people don't know about it. So I'm not exactly sure who sponsored this, who created it, but I know that our congresswoman would only be sitting on a panel with approved people. So it was either invited by her or approved by her. And because otherwise there's no way that she would be sitting there. And so I just think it's very interesting. And I know Jamara is just very, very smart woman. So I'm sure she did her research as well. And she is an amazingly good community advocate. I think we've had her on. Guys, we've had a show for 3.5 years, and I know that there's certain content but then there's content I thought, but maybe it didn't actually happen, but I thought like it would be a good idea, but I never did it. I don't know if any of you guys remember. I mean, I know we've definitely covered medical apartheid and healthcare in the Black community. I know we've covered that, but was Jamara one of, I think she was. I'm pretty sure we've had Jamara on as a guest because, yeah, I remember meeting her at Community Garden.
So we've got a pretty big audience that's here right now. We're going to put it out there. There's going to be a complete severing of ties between the Gen 2024 campaign and this podcast.
Yeah, we're not related.
We're not going to be promoting, donating to the campaign.
You shouldn't even, I mean, like, I don't know why you're even saying that.
So anything related to the two are to be separated now. And what you will see, particularly on our social media feeds, is going to be activity from the road, so to speak.
Yeah, we're switching over to that like on social media, but it's completely unrelated to this show.
Correct. So the clips you will see for this show, you're not going to be seeing
on social media.
You'll only see it on the YouTube channel. We'll still do the clips.
You know what we should do is we should start doing some good exclusive content for patrons, like doing special clips for patrons, because we never really have, because we've always had we've put it out on platform. But now if we're restricted, then that's something we could do and do stuff that's Patreon only.
So Dr. Shiva, who's supposed to be our guest, popped in for a minute and then popped out.
We don't know what happened. Well, maybe he saw he would just had something else he had to take care of, and he'll be right back.
That's possible. I already sent an email over just to confirm if there is any issue. So
and I hope you know enough to introduce properly, because I really don't.
Well, I
mean, I know who it is.
If he comes back, then yes.
If he comes back, you'll make the effort.
Well, of course, because we have a wonderful friend, Nancy, who
absolutely
really wanted us to have him on, and I think that's important. But we do have other topics to talk about that are of considerable importance right now. And for those of you who've been paying attention, the big story, the big thing that's happening right now. No, it's not the solar eclipse, even though that's all news seems to want to talk about right now.
I swear to God, I'm like so out of the loop on that.
No, the big news is that Israel invaded Rafah. So they did it. And now you're going to see a little bit of footage, and we're going to talk about it.
Like, I don't know what the rules are.
Well, whatever the rules are, we're going to find out. But the bottom line is
that's not good.
Any of these so-called threats, any of these so-called, hand-wringing, it doesn't change the fact that billions upon billions upon billions of dollars in weaponry, resources, and so forth. It's nice if you're opening up the floodgates, so to speak, in order for people to bring humanitarian aid that, of course, as we learned, was just being blocked from day one.
And do you know, and I recently heard this, for anybody who doesn't watch the Electronic Intifada, I strongly recommend watching it's the Electronic Intifada. And Ali Abu Nima is one of the journalists. There's a few of them, and Nora Barris Friedman. I don't know. I'm not great with names, but they're amazing. And I found out on that they have been charging people. Egypt has been charging people $10,000 per person to be able to let them out. So these families who have nothing are scrounging, and only certain people are like able to get out because they don't have that. So, Egypt is not helping. Egypt is definitely going with Team Israel on this. And it's very disturbing. The whole thing is just like, so when people ask, why don't the other Arab nations help? Yeah, this is why they're in with us.
And then they're going to put the specter over everyone's head about Iran and what they're going to do or not going to do. And all the while, innocent women, children, men, women, and children are going to be killed, just as they were last night.
Again, I don't see how we're getting.
So what's the point? Listen, yes, humanitarian aid should be brought into Gaza, but nothing changes until the occupation ends.
Well, right. So, I think they don't realize that now. To me, when I go to things, even at the rally we were at, and everybody's like, what do we want? Ceasefire. And I know that that's a good rallying cry for ceasefire. But I've objected to that term the entire time because it implies there's a war, and this is not a war. It's a genocide, right? So we don't need to ask for a ceasefire, right? That's a little bit, paltry. So I think that we're in a situation now where, how are we not recognizing how absurd it is that we're simultaneously sending weapons and aid? I know that it's memes. I get it. Like, we've seen memes of that, but it really is just, it's absurd to me.
Yeah.
So if anybody thinks that they should be getting any sort of credit for sending in aid to a massacre that they funded and supported, no, that's not how this works. That there's no redemption for that. Like, this is not how that works.
And we're going to bring in our guest,
Crazy.
Dr. Shiva, in just a minute. But, you
Yeah.
know, it serves to reason, and this whole concept that it's a war. It's not a war. This is a massacre of the highest order.
Right. So that's why I hate the term ceasefire. And I get it. It's demanding it, because you wouldn't say, you know, you can't fit the entire thing you want to say in a very catchy phrase like ceasefire. But the reality is ceasefire implicates a war.
I think it's a good point when you say, do you think all Americans are not too smart or just racist or just lying? What I think ends up happening more often than not is that there's a couple of ways to look at this. It's kind of like with our congressperson. When people ask, like, how do you become such a mouthpiece for such a horrific circumstance? And the truth is that when you are so corporate captured, when the worst case scenario presents itself, there is no deviating from the status quo, because that's what you're paid to do. And if you don't follow through as you are paid to do, then you basically just become a dustbin for history. They'll find somebody else who will step up and will take that money, that ill-gotten corporate special interest money, regardless of where it comes from, for that specific issue, and they will parrot that narrative. Full stop. That's the career that they wanted and that they signed up for. It's very difficult to break through for those that are not willing to fight against this very system that, when you look at it logistically and logically at this point, does seem like it is breaking at the seams.
Oh, yeah, no.
Because there's no way
it's
that
in
you
the death throes.
You,
We're in
you
death
can't
throes.
justify what's going on at this point anymore. It's just too obvious. The idea that you think you're going to fool people with this, oh, now we're able to get the humanitarian aid in. Remember, our congresswoman just a day ago was out there saying specifically that it was Hamas that was blocking the aid from getting in.
YouTube rejected my comment. YouTube wouldn't print my comment, but Facebook would. That's interesting.
Okay.
And
well, they
don't like
genocide.
the word. Yeah, they don't like that word. Okay.
So
So we'll just reprint it and take
do
out
it.
that word, because I want to explain what I meant when I was calling out the government of Egypt,
Okay. Well,
which has nothing to do with Egyptian
if you
people.
want to make a comment real quick, and I'll just
Okay,
let
yeah.
you-
So what I was saying is this. What I'm saying is that leadership in that country, in Egypt, is also complicit with the genocide. They're okay with that happening. They apparently are okay with that happening. That's what I'm saying. So whatever that may be. Now, the people of Egypt, that's not the case. Like that, I don't think at all. I am simply saying, and again, this is from, please go watch Ali Abunimah. He explains it infinitely better than I do on the electronic intifada, but this was the gist of it.
Well, we're not allowed to comment at all. Let's see if we could do anything.
Anyway,
Help me help you.
We're just being blocked.
Can we?
Okay.
That worked. All right. So I don't know. Maybe
All right.
the word Egypt or something.
Yeah,
is
they don't
being
want us.
blocked.
Yeah, Egypt might be being blocked, but anyway, so
No, that's
whatever.
always well.
But
well,
that
of
is
course.
what's happening. My point
Yes.
is that they just don't care about the
And
people.
let's and before we bring in Dr. Shiva, just remember this one last point.
Yeah.
Do not underestimate how wretched and destructive tribalism can be in the worst case scenarios. There are people who literally look at what this administration is allowing to happen to the Palestinian people, and their knee-jerk reaction is to say, but Trump. There is somebody well, I wouldn't even say independent media, but somebody in media who wanted to interview Jen, and that interview is not going to happen now because that person thinks that despite everything, that you still need to go out and support the president without any concessions, nothing. Just keep it exactly the way that it is.
Well, it's not that, I don't think it's that he wouldn't interview me. I told you I don't.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
That's what I'm saying.
I don't need to be harassed about that. I just
No,
don't.
and it doesn't serve any
No.
ends because
No.
the truth is, if we're already spiraling out of control, then
Yes.
you need to rip off the Band-Aid. You cannot continue to do this. So without further ado, we are very pleased to welcome a gentleman who is running as an independent for the U.S. Senate in the state of Massachusetts. lots of different names.
Yeah, but they've got better systems than
They
we
do. As a matter of fact, I think Massachusetts is probably one of the better run states.
And they have better education than we do. They have a lot of better things, but I'm just saying.
They do. But if there's one thing that we are learning, and that is why, as we said, this interview is happening because we have a friend who's a big supporter of Jen's and is also a big supporter of Dr. Shiva's, wanted to see this interview happen. So it's now going to happen.
We take requests.
Dr. Shiva, welcome to Generational Change.
How are you guys doing? Let me bring you guys on because we also have a stream going on here. Hold on.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so I think I should be able to bring you guys on. There.
That's how I know people that are like kind of savvy because I'll do that when I go on shows. When I StreamYard, I'll stream on other people as well.
All right, there you guys are. How are you guys doing?
Good. How are you?
Good. Nice to be here. I know Heather had set this up, but I don't know where we want to start. I know. I want to talk about like where, let's talk about your background, why you're running for Senate, like why Massachusetts. President. We're running for president as an independent candidate.
Ah.
Why did you tell me Senate, Massachusetts?
I'm sorry. I got
we did run for Senate in 2020 when it was our campaign which exposed the entire backdoor portal into Twitter in our historic lawsuit.
Oh, okay, because I'm looking at this thing and it says U.S. Senate 2024, Dr. Shiva independent.
Yeah, I don't know why they put that up. It's okay.
Okay.
We may run for Senate against Elizabeth Warren again. Maybe we'll run for 2 offices.
So how did that go? What was that like running as an independent? Like, how'd you do as an independent?
Yes, I'll give you the background. I've always been an activist most of my life. I grew up in a world of engineering and politics and art, all those 3 worlds. But I've never believed in the electoral process because of all the nonsense that takes place. But in 2017, because we had built a movement, the movement for truth, freedom, health, we decided to run. And the campaign slogan we had, some people may know a woman called Elizabeth Warren. And Elizabeth Warren, our slogan was only the real Indian can defeat the fake Indian. Hey, Ken, do we have one of those magnets?
That's so
yeah, it was a hilarious slogan. We had these magnets that we made. We had a huge bus. I have a building here in Cambridge, which is right on a main road called Concord Avenue. Harvard's right down the street. And about 100,000 people drive by here. And we had a bus with this massive, massive thing with a picture of me, her in a headdress, and said only the real Indian can defeat the fake Indian. So you could see some people would get upset.
Yeah.
Some people chuckled at it. Some people were appalled at it, all different emotions. The city of Cambridge said that we had to take it down off our bus. So I sued the city of Cambridge back in a federal lawsuit by myself, and we won. But anyway, we had about 10 of us who ran that campaign. We got 100,000 votes. We got on the ballot.
Right.
And then both the Democrats and the Republicans colluded to keep me off the debate stage, even though I was rightfully allowed. I was polling at the levels that were at their levels, 10% visibility, all those things. And then in 2020, I ran as Senate again as a Republican. We said we'd give those people a shot, even though they didn't want independent, they don't want independent-minded people, either of these parties.
No.
So we had about 3,000 volunteers in Massachusetts. We raised $2 million. My opposing Republican candidate had only raised $200,000, and that was given to him by the GOP against me. So we were everywhere. We had 25,000 lawn signs up, 10,000 bumper stickers, or the inverse, 10,000 lawn signs, 25,000 bumper stickers. The opposing candidate, I don't even think he had 1 lawn sign up. So anyway, by all accord, even the Republican GOP said Dr. Shiva is going to win by a landslide. Anyway, the results start coming in. This was a September 2020 primary. I win in a county. There's 9 counties in Massachusetts, all white working class community, by 10 points. Where in that county, all the ballots are hand counted predominantly. In every other county, it was 60-40, 60-40, 60-40, 60-40, 60-40, 60-40, 60-40. Okay? A very weird number to a candidate no one knew. So I didn't believe I lost, and no one else believed. So I had to put on my hat as an MIT, PhD, started really understanding how these voting systems worked, and came to find out that in all of the electronic voting machines, when you put a paper ballot in, it gets scanned and becomes a ballot image, a photograph. That ballot image is what is reviewed by the AI on those machines to determine who gets what. Well, those ballot images, by a law called 52 USC 20701, has to be saved for 22 months. It was a law that was passed 50 years ago that encouraged audit of elections, so people felt good. Auditing was supposed to be a good thing, right? Not a bad thing. Questioning elections, and that was passed by a majority of Democrats and Republicans many years ago, 50 years ago. So I issued public records requests for those ballot images. The government of Massachusetts said they had deleted them, that they didn't have to save them. And I said, show me the law. They couldn't show me the law. In a series of 4 emails, the general counsel of the Secretary of State is admitting they deleted them and they don't have to show me anything. Well, anyway, I posted that on Twitter. I'd been on Twitter since 2007, never been thrown off. I said 1.5 million ballot images were deleted, and I get thrown off within 24 hours. And we had moved our campaign to a write-in campaign. This is in 2020 now. And so there's still about 60 days left up until the general election. And so we found out that the Secretary of State's office had contacted Twitter. So government had contacted a private company to deplatform a political opposition candidate, which is essentially what the Constitution was all about, political speech. So I had to file my own lawsuit in federal court. No lawyer wanted. Lawyers are scumbags. They don't want to take on the government, right? They work for the government. Okay. Sorry, that's the truth. Lawyers. So anyway, I had to file it. I got the preliminary injunction. I argued something called the cat's paw liability. In cross-examination, I discovered that the government had contacted Twitter through a backdoor portal that was developed for them in 2018 in conjunction at the Harvard Belfer School, the Atlantic Council, this entire infrastructure. I was the first one who discovered that. It came out in courtroom testimony. The judge was appalled, and he gave me the terms of the TRO. So I won the preliminary injunction. By the way, Glenn Greenwald, I call him Fucker Carlson, all these people are notified about this, and they intentionally concealed this case because we're independent. You see, they want to give limelight. Either it comes from them, right? So anyway, in May of that year, the court hearing gets set. And the night before that hearing, I was preparing my opening statements, and I discovered these documents on a server at the Harvard Belfer School, which lays out in gross detail. And everyone can find this on winbackfreedom.com. 500 million people came to learn about this. You can see by the views. But over time, we published a bunch of documents which showed that a censorship infrastructure was developed at the Belfer School in conjunction with CISA. So when I brought this into the courtroom, the judge was appalled, and he appoints me a lawyer, a constitutional lawyer. He goes, Dr. Ayadura, you've done amazing work here on your own. Wilmer and Hale was the opposing counsel for Twitter, argued that I couldn't have written my briefs. They were too good. So they give me a constitutional lawyer to help me, brief up my cases, so they could survive appellate review all the way to the Supreme Court. Anyway, 7 weeks this guy had to brief up my case. And he tells me, Shiva, don't go after the government. Drop all your cases against the government. Be happy that you'll be the first guy back on Twitter. This will be an amazing lawsuit. So I had to fire this guy because he was trying to sell me out. And then the judge flips on me because they had a deal because the evidence I had was so overwhelming. They thought I'd be a good house slave and be so happy to get on Twitter, right, that I would not go after the government. Anyway, that case has now moved on to CISA, but this is long before Twitter Files, which is a limited hangout. So Carlson knew about this. So so one of the things that emerges out of this is that the establishment sits on truth, hides truth. They release it when they want to release it, when it has no effect anymore. And we'll talk about it to act as though that they're doing something about it. It's a very, very important dynamic that one needs to understand. It's about telling the truth at the right time to mobilize people into action. So when we decided to run for president in 2023, April 2023, I'm born in India. So the question is, can a natural-born, naturalized citizen, the 14th Amendment, and there have been multiple Supreme Court rulings which have argued vehemently, and it should be, a very clear issue that a natural-born citizen, by the way, which the Constitution never defined, is equal to a naturalized citizen. So we filed a declaratory relief lawsuit. We have, over 100,000 volunteers all over the United States. In every state, we have to gather signatures. When I ran for Senate, you needed 10,000 signatures to get on the ballot. Here, you needed 300,000 in Florida, 1,000 in Utah.
Yep.
Kennedy has only gotten on the ballot in one state. We got signatures on 2. The mainstream media will not cover us because we're absolutely independent. Booby fucking Kennedy is part of the swarm. He goes to the Zionist hoodlums and he raises 20 million bucks and he's hiring signature vendors. You say? So it's a fake anti-establishment campaign. It's not real.
But so I understand this, but so right now though, you know, the way that the Constitution is written is that you do need to be natural born citizens.
That's not true. That's not true. Absolutely false. It's false. So the truth is, you're talking about Article 2, Section 1, Clause 5 of the Constitution. Okay. So people need to really learn history, because that same clause around it also says only he can be president. Okay. All right. First of all, natural born is never defined. In 20 years after 1787, the Maryland legislature ruled that the Marquis de Lafayette was a natural born citizen. Okay. And all of his heirs. All right. So now we have the Bill of Rights, and then the 14th Amendment was passed, the Equal Protection Clause and the Citizenship Clause, which laid it out very clearly. You cannot discriminate by race or national origin. The problem is people don't have the balls to assert this because everyone just thinks la-di-da-di-da, that's just the way it is. The 19th Amendment imposed the Equal Protection Clause to say women can run for office. That's where this comes from. After that, Bowling versus Sharp in 1954 laid it out very clearly, okay, that, you know, when the 14th Amendment was passed, it was about that a naturalized citizen equals a natural born citizen at the state level, right? So we're a republic. Bowling versus Sharp made it very clear that the 14th Amendment, which was at the states, you cannot discriminate by national origin, also got reciprocally applied to the Fifth Amendment due process, which means effects at the federal level. So the Fifth Amendment and the 14th Amendment became clear. Then in another landmark ruling by the Supreme Court in 1964.
Okay, but let me ask you this though.
Let me finish.
I mean, look, it's all good, but like, can we at least just talk about like platform stuff? And
yeah, but you said I can't run.
Very hypothetical. These are all very hypothetical.
But you said I can't run. I can, because the FEC in 2011 ruled a naturalized citizen can run.
I didn't say you couldn't run. I was just asking.
Yeah, so
I simply asked you based on that. I know that.
Yeah, so the FEC has already ruled on this in a 2011 ruling. The only thing is you can't get presidential matching funds. So anyway, we have collected signatures. We're on the on 2 states, Idaho and Utah. We're on the ballot in one, and in one state, Wyoming, has denied us the rights, asking me that I prove that I came out of my mother's womb. So this is going to be a very, very interesting. They said I can show you the letter. It says prove to me.
And honestly, if you want to pursue that, like, all the power to you for pursuing all that. You know what I'm saying? But like, as far as, you know, running for president, like, what's the platform? Like, what are you like trying to promote? Yeah.
So let's start with that. So can I share my screen here or no with you guys?
No.
Okay.
No.
So if you go to shivaforpresident.com, there's a very nice flyer there. It's a 1-page flyer. About 3-4 million have been distributed. So, you know, it's when you have so many things, you need to find an issue that from that issue, it gives a systems understanding of the interconnection of all these issues. The fundamental issue is since 1980 till today, the lifespan of, if you have a son or a daughter, their lifespan is going to be shorter than yours. And the curve actually goes like this. And it's not the vaccine. People say, oh, it's a vaccine. No, that curvature has been going like this since 1980. And this has been a result of policies, a whole range of policies, not only one issue. It's been the incredible stress that the policies of what I call the swarm, those in power left and right, have imposed on everyday people. Those policies include income inequality, right? Those policies include the environmental toxins. Those policies include a whole range of things beyond just any one thing. So it's a systems view. And this goes all the way back to the 1960s and 70s when John Kennedy created the 1962 Kennedy Vaccination Act, right? And then Ted Kennedy absolved that act by protecting Big Pharma. And then Booby Kennedy tries to act like though he's for medical freedom, when in fact he's the one who supports full vaccination of all Americans. But it's essentially been all of these people, not just any one situation, left and right, Republican, Democrat. And so when you unpack that issue of why is lifespan going down, you find out it has to do with healthcare, which is we have a healthcare system where we don't focus on developing people's immune systems. It's all about a reactionary medical model, which leads to the modern medical system.
So
Right?
do you support single payer healthcare? Like, is that one of the things that you're a supporter of?
Yeah. So what I support is the following. There's an emerging movement called direct care by DCP, where the physicians, you basically enable physicians, about 2,000 physicians now in the United States, you enable them to directly, you pay them $75 a month. So you can pay a physician $75 to $100 a month. And many of these DCP physicians are only taking maybe 500 patients on in a year. So they're getting a good income stream because you're guaranteeing $75 a month, and then you get crisis insurance. And so it's about $200 a month, and you get direct care by a physician, the old school family, you support the family practitioner, and then you have the model where in the event that you have a crisis. But one of the things here is educating people that my PhD is in a field called systems biology, is really to educate people. It's about the immune system. If you look at what's gone on, the immune system of human beings is being destroyed by all these things I'm talking about. But that's one of the models on this. Later on, I did a little whiteboard video which shares that, but that's one piece. The second piece of this is if you look at the environment, it's very difficult to get good food. Think about how hard for everyday people it's even get a good healthy meal. And the big agricultural systems that have been created have in many ways destroyed the food system at the soil level, all the way to the toxins in the environment, right?
Mm-hmm.
And ultimately, the way that's going to be solved is decentralizing food to the local farmers. Now, local farmers, it's very, very difficult for them to even butcher their meat. If you talk to them, the USDA constrictions that are put on. So they have to fight with big ag in an economic model that's never going to work. So we educate people every Thursdays at 8 p.m. We do a town hall. shivaforpresident.com/town hall.
So you're talking about like the policies and stuff that
So we have healthcare, we have environment, then we have, education, innovation, governance, and then economy. And each one of these issues we rotate. So now we've done close to over 12 rotations, you see? So for example, last Thursday on healthcare, which was our 13th rotation on that, or 12th rotation, we talked about the gut microbiome, right? What happens to how your gut and your brain are completely related. We shared a lot of the research that I do, and then what people can do. You say the week before that, it was on the environment. Then we talk about innovation policies and what's going on with the patent system. Right now, one of the important things that's happening is that, the founders had wanted to create an infrastructure, intellectual property system that any one of us, all three of us, could patent things. You say very little entry fee, and you own the life of the patents for 20 years, et cetera. Over the last, particularly since 1970, what's happened is only large companies can patent things. The small inventors can't get their stuff out. If you look at a place like MIT created 30,000 businesses, all small businesses, which now contribute close to $2 trillion, to the GDP every year. So that's a very, very important piece. How do you innovate things at a much more local level? Innovation has become highly, highly centralized. Big VCs, big private equity, right? So we don't really do major innovation. When I created email when I was a 14-year-old kid, it wasn't done at MIT. The fabricated controversy was when this went into the Smithsonian. I had done it in 1978 when I converted the old-fashioned interoffice mail system into the electronic version. The problem is I didn't do it at MIT. It occurred in a small medical college in an African-American community in Newark, New Jersey. And I was a young 14-year-old kid, had gone to NYU, started working at that medical school. But it was in this environment of an open structure where it was a loving family, good mentors, and access to infrastructure that email came out of. It wasn't done by the military-industrial complex. By the way, Philo Farnsworth, the young 14-year-old kid, is one who invented TV in Franklin, Idaho.
Okay.
So the issue is innovation really occurs at the edges. It does not occur in a centralized manner. So the U.S.
But it would probably occur better if we had single-payer healthcare.
Well,
and it wasn't tied to employment, but yeah.
Dr. Shiva, let me ask you this, because I think that you are hitting on a lot a lot of ancillary issues that I think are very important to a lot of people. And I think one of the things, and again, you did bring up a good point regarding RFK. Definitely agree with you, especially regarding the Israel lobby. There's no question that that's where the lion's share of his funding has come from, and that's why he has, stood on ceremony when it comes to what's going on in Gaza right now. But one thing that he did bring up as an independent candidate, which I think is very important, is the control that private equity has, especially over housing in this country. And it seems to be a crisis that has been growing exponentially. I happen to work in commercial real estate. I see it all the time. People cannot afford to purchase a home, especially people that are in the, again, post 1980. If you're living in the millennial and Gen Z generations in particular, the ability to have a job or a career for that matter and be able to afford a home and build generational wealth is almost non-existent for most. So where do you stand on the likes of, let's say, private equity regarding BlackRock, State Street, and Vanguard, and their ability to basically have no regulation on them whatsoever and buy up all the single family homes that they can get their hands on in this country and render basically an entire renter class for multiple generations, which I see as being one of the key economic issues of our time that isn't really being addressed?
Yeah, well, I've been addressing that since 2017. And by the way, RFK knows nothing about this issue. He's never had to suffer. You're looking at when I came to the United States, we lived in a home, in a rental property where we couldn't even get heat. We had to put coal into it. So you have to understand these people bring up issues just to point out Booby effing Kennedy. And that's what he is. He's a fake anti-establishment, and it needs to be addressed, because the reason change does not take place is because the swarm creates these fake people who talk about issues, but have no real solutions. Now, when you look at the housing crisis and you look at all of these issues, innovation, it's been the consolidation of power that has taken place, power, profit, and control since 1970. And the policies that have taken place, and that not only affects housing, has been a policy of centralization in all of these areas. And you can even just look, in 2020, what took place. 600 billionaires increased their wealth by $2.3 trillion. During these lockdowns. Kennedy supported lockdowns. Trump supported lockdowns. $16 trillion, went by the wayside. But the fundamental issue is that since 1970 till today, there's been massive consolidation of power. And what we need to talk about is how do we change that? So you have to have a little bit of understanding of history. So if you go back to the late 1800s, the United States and the working people of this country led some of the most powerful labor movements. It was in 1886 that the Haymarket riots took place. Yeah. And during those riots, 4 American workers were hanged. And none of this everyday people learn anymore. And it was in the 1920s, women led these massive militant movements starting in Lowell, Massachusetts here, because they wanted to organize labor. And those bottoms up movements are the ones that enabled solutions to what we're talking about, housing, right? Ending child labor. All these things came from mass movements, which put the fear of God into people like the Kennedys, into people like the Roosevelts, Republicans and Democrats. So in reaction to those movements, what did the swarm do, the establishment? They did 2 things. First of all, they created the McCarthy era, right? Which went after people trying to brand anyone who was trying to build these bottoms-up movements as quote unquote being controlled by communists in Russia. But in fact, the organic movement of the American people is one of the most vibrant political movements. So between 1900 to 1970, if you look at that block, as these movements grew, as we had very powerful movements, 11,000 strikes, close to 200 million participating in these strikes, all wages in every income quartile grew. That's when, America was known. That's why my parents came here in 1970, right? Because you could buy a home, it was affordable, all those things. But it was these mass labor movements. After 1970, something very powerful took place. The swarm, the elites knew, shit, we don't want people organizing bottoms up. So they did 2 things. The bottoms up trade unions were taken over by the Democrats. The Republicans branded all these bottoms up movements as right wing or left wing communists. So the left and the right colluded. So between 1970 till today, if you look at the dynamics, there's been maybe 2 million people participating in about 900 strikes. So as the labor movement waned, right, we have had a massive transfer of about $47 trillion.
Yeah, no, I mean, we address labor all the time on this show.
Oh, really? Okay.
We cover labor quite a bit. That's one of our big things. And we also walk picket lines. So, that's something we cover a lot. But what does that look like in terms of policy? So, for example, I support the PRO Act. I think that we need to get rid of right to work states. There's definitely things that need to be done for that. But yeah, I mean, like,
Well,
so what's the
what,
policy for that?
so Jen, what we've done is our position is the following, okay? It has been, as an activist since 1980, it is movements, actual bottoms-up movements that fundamentally change things. Without that force, the policies have no teeth to them. When I was growing up in New Jersey, if you wanted to change something, your teacher would say, oh, go write to your congressman, right? Or go run for office or file this lawsuit. But all of those things don't have any teeth without a movement. So what we've done is we've built a global movement, Truth, Freedom, Health. And that movement, number one, educates people on the importance of building bottoms-up movements, the dynamics of that. And then to the extent that you engage in electoral legal politics, you have to have this movement. So everything we do is to engage people to learn this dynamic and then get on the ground. So for example, collecting signatures is a real expression of that activism, right? You go out and collect signatures, a police show up to try to tell you you can't collect signatures, right? And then you have to understand the law and you have to essentially flex your muscles as a citizen. So in our view, all of these issues, nothing is substantially going to happen until these mass bottoms-up movements are recreated. That's why you talked about generational wealth, right? You talked about why immigrants came here fundamentally. It was because of this, and it's a dot that needs to be connected, which people don't want to connect. They want to make it liberal populism. So you don't want to give power to people. So that's the fundamental nature of what we're doing. So everything we do is about, we drive people back to build these movements. So, an eclipse is taking place, right?
Right.
The eclipse is going to solve something. Some magical thinking is going to happen, and somehow Zionism is going to end, or we're going to all be freed because some event is going to take place. And this fundamental understanding is what we're bringing into the electoral politics, that none of these people, Trump, Booby, Kennedy, Sanders, all these people were created fundamentally post-1950s, 60s. It was a real active part of creating what we call the not so obvious establishment, people running for politics, to enable people to think these people who know nothing about the lives of everyday people, are going to solve things. They don't know the lives of growing up in a discriminatory world.
I mean, this sounds like to me like a really good educational campaign, and I appreciate that. But I see the need to educate people because that's what we do here. I mean, that's the whole point of what I'm doing. And so I recognize that. But at the end of the day, when you're running for president, people want to hear this is the policy we're going to do. And that is just the way it is, because otherwise it makes for really good PAC, it makes for really good educational opportunities. But why run for president? What is it that you're trying to do as president?
Do you see yourself actually getting on, a substantial amount of ballots?
Yeah.
That's also the big question.
Yeah.
Well, I think you're asking the wrong questions. You're asking the wrong questions because you're assuming that change comes by a Booby Kennedy doing something.
No, I'm not assuming that at all.
Because you said it's just educational. So you haven't.
Well, that's what you appear to every time we ask a policy. You just tell me that you're out there educating people, and I think that's amazing. I'm just saying, if you're running,
well, no, that's not what I said.
What is the presidential run for?
You were deconstructing my words into something else.
Okay.
Education is very important. If you don't think education is important, that's the reason we're in this situation. Because people.
No, I know it's important. That's why I do this podcast.
Let me finish.
Yeah.
So in each one of these areas, there's 6 areas. Each one of those areas has very particular platforms. Okay, so healthcare, environment, all of those, not only particular platforms, detailed platforms, not just gee whiz things, but our platforms are based on the individual participating in them. Not saying it's going to be a top-down solution. So I'm not sure what you mean by a platform. It seems
what I mean is, do you support single-payer healthcare?
Something that happens top-down.
Well, right. No. I understand. I am all about the outside-in movement, but at the end of the day,
you seem to think a platform, it comes from top-down. That it doesn't come from bottoms up.
No, I don't think that. But what I'm asking you is do you support single payer healthcare?
I told you what I support. I don't support that policy. What I support is a policy of DCP. Okay, it's a very different model.
Okay.
So the problem is people think you have to be pro-climate, anti-climate. So you have to wake up to the fact that when new blood comes in, we're going to have a very different view. And you have to open your mind to that. And if you're unwilling to do that, then it's just about keeping the playing field in the world of the existing swarm. Oh, Booby said this, Trump said this. Every one of their platforms is being defined by the same people who want to keep things as they are. So you have to expand your understanding.
Yeah.
And that understanding is every one of these issues has a root cause. So when you look at healthcare, let's get to the root cause. Why
Yeah.
is the lifespan of the American people going down? Why?
Well, we've covered it on our show
No,
for
no,
the
it
past
doesn't
3.5
matter.
years.
Tell me why it's going down.
Well,
Why is the
there's a
lifespan
lot
going
of
like
different
this?
there's a lot of variables, but we're poisoning ourselves. We're corporate bought. We have politicians that are owned by big pharma that profit off of it. I mean, there's a lot of variables.
It's a
We've been doing
multi-system.
we've been covering a lot of these issues over the past
Well,
3.5
yeah,
years.
that's fine. But you have me on here to talk about it. You can cover all these issues, but we're having a conversation right now. The issue is it's a multi-systems issue. And when you uncover that, you find out that the reason this has been happening is because a set of people who've been involved in this have been into the centralization of healthcare. It has been big pharma, which has a reductionist medical model. There is not any intention to educate people on how to take care of their health. The medical doctor, the family practitioner, cannot even go and practice family practicing. They have to go join hospitals. By the time they come out of medical school, they have about a $500,000 loan, right? So there's a number of systemic issues that need to change. For example, in healthcare, one of our policies is you need to eliminate the need for for someone to become a medical doctor to go to undergraduate. Many countries, you go right from high school to a 5 or 6 year program. The second thing is we have to support DPCs, which is the doctor can directly serve medicine, not the concierge model. And then you have to enable people to make it much easier for people to get the crisis care. So it's a very
Doctor,
different.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Do you support even if you don't support the single payer model, do you support the removal of private insurance and basically defanging big pharma? Do you?
That's exactly what we're saying. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So fundamentally, there's this movement, and that's coming from the medical community to do that, where you can. Doctors are saying, I don't want to deal with insurance. Pay me $75 a month out of pocket. I mean, that was the old school days, right? Go back to 1970s to see your doctor. You paid him $50. He knew you, your family. It was a much better healthcare model, right? The doctor didn't spend 15 minutes. So we've essentially degenerated that. But fundamentally, that's what it is. But it's a systemic problem from the time someone decides to go to medical school. So they're coming off with massive amount of loans. So most doctors are being forced to go to join large hospitals. The other piece here is, independent of that, if you do go to a hospital, one of our policies that we've talked about for nearly 8 years is GPOs and PBMs. I'm sure you guys know who those are, right?
I don't know what that is.
Well, if you want to talk about healthcare and you don't know about GPOs and PBMs, it's like the issue. So group purchasing organizations and PBMs in the 1970s were created, which allowed legalized corruption. So two arms here. Group purchasing, if you go to a hospital, everything in that hospital goes through 3 major GPOs. Now in the 70s, let's say the 3 of us owned our own hospital, we were each buying pillowcases or bedpans or insulin, right? Paying X. So we outsourced our buying purchase to what was called a group purchaser. So all of us pooled all the things we wanted and you get a better deal, okay? Well, those GPOs by 2000 were given the rights to give kickbacks to hospital administrators. It's got legalized by Congress.
Well, that's what everybody talks about regarding if there is one specific entity within the healthcare sphere that is the most corrupted at this point, it is definitely the hospital system. There's no question.
No, it's the GPOs. It's the
GPOs that have essentially corporate captured the hospital system.
Right,
you
but
walk
they
into
have
a hospital,
become.
They make you pay $30 for an Advil. It's things like
right,
that.
and so what they've also done is the 3 major GPOs in the last 3 years merged with the 3 major insurance companies. So now you have total opacity of costs. So and they have the right to give kickbacks to hospital administrators. That should be made illegal.
It should absolutely be illegal.
And same with PBM. So I'm giving you very specific policies here. PBMs do the same thing on the drug side. This is why the cost of drugs is so high. So we have massive opacity in the healthcare system, which needs to be eliminated. We have the fact that the medical, one of the other policies is eliminate the need to go to, undergraduate. You should be able to go right from high school, maybe 1 year right to medical school. You reduce the cost on the medical student.
Let me ask you this. Let me ask you this before we wrap, because I think this is important. And hang on 1 second, because that's
the element. That's how it sounds. He's going to pick up Graham. It's what the element sounds like. It's a 2003 Honda Element.
So, Doc,
what is it?
Last question, because we do have to wrap. We have seen one so far, and I assume there will be others. But in terms of independent party candidates, or at least candidates that are running outside of the two-party duopoly, are doing debates, are you going to be participating in any type of presidential debates coming up that we should know about so that more and more people will hear your message?
Yeah, the issue is, do they want us to invite us to any debates? You say, even if we get the visibility on the ballot, as you know, there's 4 levels of election fraud in the United States. First is who even gets visibility. Even if you overcome that, then they restrict you on getting ballot access. Okay. Then the third is debates. And the fourth is if you even win all their elections, like happened in Massachusetts, then they manipulate the machines. So we're the ones who've exposed 4 of those things, and we're exposing the 5th one right now, the whole ballot access issue. So it's really a question to be asked more broadly to the American people. Now, there has to be a new model of conducting debates, you see, that takes it out of independent journalists should be able to conduct debates, and call people into them like you guys, because it's 4 major media companies or 3 who control these debates.
It should go back to the League of Women Voters.
Yeah,
that was when it was better.
That was a model but it should be like many League of Women Voters,
Well, yes. As a member of the league, we take that seriously.
Hey, look, it was a little before my time, but I had no idea that Ronald Reagan debated John Anderson because Jimmy Carter.
Oh, yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah, I remember that debate very well. Yeah, I remember that in 1980.
Yeah.
It was
and
a
I
pretty
do
good
think
debate,
that these,
actually.
but you know what? And we can conclude on this note. This system in its current construction is breaking at the seams. It's conversations like the ones that we're having that are now considered commonplace. They're not considered, something that's passé or, on the spectrum. It's not like that anymore. We want to have these conversations with people that are not in the hierarchy of the Democratic or Republican Party establishment. That is dying. And I think everybody knows that. And that's why they're working so much harder on things like censorship, because it's all forms of censorship. If the truth is something that can't be shared, then don't come at me with this, fascism is going to happen if so-and-so gets elected. It's like, no, it's already here. Yeah. You've already completely captured our system. And that's why these types of conversations, I think, are very, very important. And again, we are very appreciative that you came on, Doc. And I think it's very important that your message continues to get out there because, again, it's not the message that's being sent out by corporate media. And that is very important. So if people do want to follow your campaign and, yes, hopefully also be able to see you on a debate stage, what would be the best way for them to get in touch with you?
So everyone should go to Shiva, SHIVA, numeral 4, number 4, president.com. So I encourage people to go there. They can volunteer, because we actually are mobilizing. We have leaders in every state. The second thing is they can go to truthfreedomhealth.com. Those 2 are the important sites. And then finally, if they want to understand what the real problem is, we created a mini site called shattertheswarm.com. So Shiva, numeral 4, president.com, truthfreedomhealth.com, and shattertheswarm.com. But it's good you guys are doing this. Keep it up. It's very important that, on closing, we have a lot of people talking truth now. In my view, it's telling the truth at the right time to the right people to mobilize people. One of my mentors was a guy called Noam Chomsky. So Noam would do all these great things, telling the truth, but it was very academic truth telling. People would listen to all this truth and feel very, very depressed. Wow, this is happening and that's happening. I guess I can't do anything. So we have to understand sometimes truth telling, what is the purpose of it? Is it to create learned helplessness, or is it to mobilize people into action at the right time? So truth is going to become a massive commodity, but why are people telling the truth? To mobilize people or to demobilize people, to depress people? So it's a very fundamental issue that's going to come up, but thank you.
Doc, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Best of luck.
Great questions. Thank you. Be well, guys.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Be the light. Thank you.
So I think, the key here is, even if you have a conversation with somebody that you don't share a lot of common interests with, the truth is everybody's voice who is willing to put themselves out there definitely should be heard, because whatever way we've been doing it for the longest time is not the answer. Although I think we can agree that his philosophy is not one that we subscribe to.
I don't even know what his philosophy is.
Yes.
I have no idea. I sat there. I have no idea.
I think our chat was pretty lively in terms of the commentary.
I have
which is always
no idea what that was about.
So we'll conclude on this note. We've got Obviously, a lot of things going on, as you guys know. And we obviously, if you haven't watched at the top, we have a shifting in philosophy.
Can I say it? Can
sure,
I say
say
what-
something.
Okay, so everybody who is currently watching, go over here.
Okay.
I want to see what we're saying. So right now, everybody who is watching on X, you might not be seeing this anymore. You might not be seeing the lives anymore. So if you want to watch generational change, you're going to need to watch us on YouTube. Possibly Rumble. I think we're also on Rumble. Are we on
Yes,
Rumble?
we are on Rumble.
Okay,
we
so
don't really
YouTube-
focus on it though.
No, but maybe we could. I mean, no. So, but yeah, I'm thinking that we're not going to even be able to be doing them. So I would encourage everybody who is watching the lives on Twitter, check out Generational Change on YouTube. And if today was your first time watching, I assure you we have infinitely better content. Do not base any opinions on our show based on this particular episode. But yeah, you guys really, I appreciate it. But please subscribe, go to YouTube, watch us live on YouTube.
Yeah, and
That's what's going to help. But yeah.
Well, you know what? We're not even going to. I was going to talk about Ken Griffin, but Colin, do you have that image that was done of the Simpsons that was really cool? I can't believe the Simpsons are still going after all this time, but there was a really good image that was put up on Twitter today, which I think is a very happy note that we could conclude on. You see, the Simpsons still get things right after all these years. And as you can see, Night of the Living Wage, a ruthless disruptor, tried to work her to death. So she teamed up with the other working stiffs for the ultimate class struggle for survival. The Simpsons did it, as the saying goes. As you can see here, the image of, what's the character that Sally Field played again?
I don't know what you're talking
The
about.
one where she holds up the Union sign.
Oh, Norma Ray.
Oh, so this one's Norma Ray there, and Union guys here.
Well, they're all holding up Union signs, but it was Norma Ray.
Well, she's doing the Norma Ray thing right there.
I don't know if she just looks like she's holding up a Union sign. I don't know what the difference is.
Anyway, and I think Marge is supposed to be.
Yerk thinks she's supposed to be like Rosie the Riveter.
Yes, I think so.
I don't know.
A little bit.
Well, they can't really do that, or then they'd be like having copyright issues, probably. So
maybe so, but they always say that the Simpsons did it. But we are about transforming politics into service.
Yeah.
And we are about the labor movement. And so for those of you that are here, make sure that you smash that like button. Make sure that you subscribe. Make sure that you click the bell, because as you know, a lot of times we go live and people don't know that we are live. So,
and yes, please switch over and watch us on YouTube.
Make sure that you do switch over and watch us on YouTube, because
we're live twice a week, Mondays and Thursdays. Usually, I prefer evenings, but sometimes we do afternoons. We kind of just depends.
It does depend on the guests, and obviously we're very busy right now.
Yeah, but Mondays and Thursdays.
Don't want to forget you guys. We are going to keep speaking truth to power, whether we agree with our guests or not. But those things will happen from time to time.
It happens.
It does. My fault.
It is definitely, but not really. I mean, it's not anybody's fault. It's sometimes it just is what it is.
Yes.
But no, you could not have predicted that.
No,
there was no predicting that.
No. But that being said, I do think that certain levels of these issues are very important, and that we have to keep covering them.
Stop with the anti-vaxxing labels. We didn't even talk about it, for crying out loud.
Yeah. No, I don't think that that's.
I mean, I don't know what his take is on it, because I don't know. I honestly, I was just trying to get by with that, people. So, but can you just stop with the labeling of the anti-vax?
For all of you guys that are here today, you don't like my music, Travers, Brenda, Jimmy, Zimzam, Metal.
That's the other thing. If you come over on YouTube, we'll call you out.
Brenda, Andrew, Young Black Economist, Best Boomer Vita, DJ McG, good to see you back. Haven't seen you in a while. Josh the Junkie, good to see you. Kwame, I think you might be new. Haven't seen you. Who else? Let's see. Sile George, who you think you might know.
I don't know. No, I don't. I don't think I know him. I think he was referencing another comment that I thought I don't know. No, I think he was referencing the Booby Kennedy comment.
It's very possible.
That's what I think. Yeah, I'm not.
Brian St. Pierre, Chris Garrett,
and Brian St. Pierre. If you're still there for this is how I'm going to explain it to you. Okay,
Ricky Lai.
My point is that Egypt government does not care to help the Palestinians. My comment wouldn't come through on YouTube because I used a wording they did not care for, but they don't care to help them. So they are charging exorbitant rates so that to limit how many Palestinians are able to come into their country.
Ricky Lee, sorry. I
Just do your thing. Just forget me answering a legitimate question by all means.
I apologize. I was just saying his name.
Okay, no, but
you're wrong.
No, it's not. I don't know if it's. Oh, because you said it wrong. What did you say? Lie?
But I said lie. Yeah, I did. Why is that?
You would say lie?
L-Y?
Lee.
Anyway, the Palestinian people are being slaughtered, and despite what corporate media and AIPAC and all of these conglomerates would have you believe, it is the destruction of.
Oh wait, I know who that is. I do know who that is. Hold on a second.
Okay.
I think is that the Ricky Lee that I've been chatting with?
Maybe.
Is that the Ricky Lee that's like the foodie guy, the chef guy in Orlando? Is that this Ricky Lee? Are you following on here? Well, I mean, we've communicated. We've dallianced. I got to go back and find it, but I think it's that same Ricky Lee.
Remember, you can still sign up to be a patron at patreon.com/generational change. And also you can chip in at Cash.
Yes, it is. It's that Ricky Lee. Hi. Very cool. Yeah, no, we were chatting. He's foodie guy.
No, well, we always like that.
Well, I definitely like that. But
and Cash App.
I'm going to show you. This is him. This is who we're talking about. Let's see if it pulls it up. Studio doesn't get the greatest reception.
Now I'm hungry.
He's a food columnist. He's a food columnist.
I gotta eat too. Would you like to eat? Are you hungry?
I have one leftover piece of pizza because Jason actually came home for lunch and ate 2 of my pieces of pizza. So that leaves me with 1 piece of pizza.
All right. Well, you'll have your 1 piece of pizza.
That's all that's left.
Well, it's better than no pizza, right?
It's better than no pizza.
Smash that like button, share, subscribe, do all those things that we ask you to do. We appreciate you all, and we will perhaps see you Thursday.
Maybe Thursday.
Maybe Thursday.
And only on YouTube, possibly.
Only on YouTube. Bye, guys.